Back home now, and with interest rates at a record low, it's pretty easy for mortgage holders to think that their interest repayments are relatively small, and that's that. There's no further consideration needed at all. Well, the reality is that you actually can make a significant impact and in the process save thousands of dollars in interest. It sounds very good to me. To tell us how to get the best rate, finance expert Olivia Maragna. Oh, Olivia, I'm so sorry. You better tell me.
Maragna.
Oh, my goodness me. I'm so sorry. You're from Aspire Retire, a brilliant name. Thank you for coming in. Tell us, what's the difference? Now I've embarrassed myself. What's the difference and how do we get the best rate?
So I think the important thing is even with a small rate cut, so a 0.5% off your mortgage is going to save you a huge amount of money. So if we look at, say, for example, a $500,000 mortgage, that's around about a $2,500 a year interest saving, which is huge for most households. If you can negotiate a 1% drop, which is not unusual, so we're seeing rates in the high fours, getting negotiated down to the high twos, so a massive difference there. So $500,000 is a $5,000 a year saving, which is about $400 a month saving for a family.
It can be pretty overwhelming, you know, who you contact, what you do, all the paperwork. What would you say to people is the first step that they need to take?
Well, I think the most important thing is to do your own research. So there are lots of comparative sites out there that you can look around to see what interest rates are. Look across multiple banks, so different lenders as well. Credit unions are providing really great rates as well, but look at your own bank. So you'll be surprised what your bank is actually charging you versus their advertised rates. So have a look across the board, make sure you're armed with some homework that you can make a call to your bank.
That's a very good point. So when I'm picking up the phone and calling, are there keywords I should say? What should I be saying to my bank?
It's a relatively simple conversation. So simple things like saying, you know, I've had a look at my mortgage rate. At this stage, it doesn't look competitive. I thought I'd give you an opportunity to negotiate or to look at my interest rate before I actually take my business elsewhere. Now, most of the time, just by picking up the phone and making that call, which might only take about 5 minutes, they'll give you an interest rate reduction on the phone. Now, just keep in mind, obviously, that rate reduction might not still be competitive. So if it's not competitive, still consider, obviously, moving around or walking away from that bank. So things aren't so tough these days in terms of moving banks. A lot of people really hesitate moving away from banks because they think it's a massive exercise, but today it's actually really relatively streamlined. So they're the things to consider with your bank.
Just very quickly, because we're running out of time, any traps that we should be aware of?
Yeah, a couple of little things. So always look at comparative rates. That's the most important. Check your fees. So always ask about fees. If you don't have time to look around at lenders, make sure that you're maybe utilising a mortgage broker. And I think the last thing is don't entwine yourself into a bank. So don't use multiple bank accounts and credit cards. Set up your everyday banking separate to your home loans so that when the next rate cut comes, you can pick up and move quite easily.
Olivia, thank you. Great tips. Appreciate you coming in.
Queensland is watching the #1 news hour.